Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is June 8th, 2023, and I am James Jones. I'm joined today by Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
Hello.
Mr. Greg Lay.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
And Mr. Iron Man is not here this week, ending his Iron Man streak at, I think it was 3. I mean, I know he does it just to needle me, but I fucking hate that it works. John's out this week. This was a planned outage. This wasn't John just texting us going, can't make it. So we're going to do a little bit more of a compact show. We're going to record without him. We're recording a little bit earlier. It's liberating to not have Lindemann around, is what I'm saying. He'll never hear this. So, gentlemen, if you have anything you want to say, any slander you want to throw out there, any just personal grudges you want to air to the world.
You want us to save it for when he's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was actually,
I was going to say, that John's not here, I'm going to do the really rancid stuff that I wouldn't want him to know. Like, I actually quite enjoy his company.
Oh.
You got to the punch. Guillaume went straight to the punchline.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to start the show on a more serious note right now, with corrections. We don't make mistakes on RFN. The world makes mistakes around us, and we, as a proxy for you, project your mistakes back onto yourself. But a mistake was made last week, and it is important that we correct the record. This is actually me being serious, not being a jackass. We were talking about Everybody 1-2 Switch last week, and we consistently recalled it Everybody, !S, possessive, Everybody's 1-2 Switch. The game is called Everybody 1-2 Switch ! It's a command.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It's not your 1-2 Switch and my 1-2 Switch and everyone's 1-2 Switch.
No, it is you get your ass to 1-2 switching.
Yeah.
Is what it's telling you. So that is what this game is. Everybody's 1-2 Switch. So get to work. Right? Go
You said it wrong
switch.
again, but...
Yeah, the problem is I'm assuming in Japan it's Mina, right? Like that.
No. So I looked that up. It is also Everybody 1-2 Switch there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because that's normally, like, in Japan, like, you have I think maybe the Wii Rhythm Heaven was like, Minano, yes. Rhythm Tengoku or whatever.
That's where that term comes from.
And a lot of the time that is, localized as everybody's.
Right.
Like
that's what it means.
But yeah, for whatever reason, I guess maybe because it isn't Mina in Japan. We've got everybody, like you said, it's more of a directive.
Right. It's a command. Like it's with the exclamation point. It makes it very explicit.
It's the secret fifth directive on RoboCop.
Yes.
After the where you have to, OCP executives are actually above the law. It's Everybody 1-2 Switch.
I adore that finding Everybody 1-2 Switch on the Japanese Nintendo site is not something you can do by looking at the news section. If you just go look at news, it is not present.
I know you mentioned this, something similar when we were recording about, there was something on Nintendo's website in the maybe the UK website, one of the European websites where they'd done coming in June and it wasn't part of it because, I got an email after that, maybe a couple of days after that was, and I'm sure it is just essentially that page of the website just put into an email digest, but it was even more, sort of glaring when it's it's been a few days since you announced this, and now you have an email bulletin to your My Nintendo members in the UK saying this is what you could get in June, and it's not mentioned. It's just not.
You had time, even if NCL surprised you with this game, which would be really, really funny, you still had a chance to... I legitimately... All right, so I'm looking for it on the page right now. And in the section that's called Games Coming Out Soon, it's just listed along with everything else. And it is written in English. Wait, hold on. Let me... No. I refuse to believe that's how it's written out. Yeah, they wrote it out in katakana as Everybody 1-2 Switch. Fucking unbelievable. Just unfathomable.
How do they pronounce horse?
I don't see it written out. I mean, normally you'd say Uma, but I Perhaps they're going to say horse as well, which would be really fucking funny. Because now they're just stealing words from other languages that they already have words for. Because if it was everybody 1-2 switch in Japanese, rather than being minna 1-2 switch, which would be saying effectively implying possessive, you'd say minasan, which I am addressing everybody, and then you would say 1-2 switch. But they avoided that by just writing the name in English like a bunch of psychopaths. What a display. What an absolute 10,000 IQ display that is. But it was important we correct it so everybody listening knows that a sentient horseman has commanded they 1-2 switch. I like that Europe, this hadn't happened at the time. Europe is the only region that has gone with a different picture of the horse. And it's smaller. So it takes up less. It's still central on the image, but it's a smaller component of it. And in that one, the horse is neither holding a smartphone or a Joy-Con. Rather, it's doing the two thumbs and pointing thumbs at itself. Presumably,
what's got two thumbs and is a bizarre inclusion on box art. This guy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's so weird. Why did Europe's like, no, we can't do this?
Yeah,
so
you get the feeling that somebody somewhere was like, do we have to have the horse on the box at all? And they're like, no, the horse is not negotiable. Can we make it a little bit smaller? Yeah, all right, you can do that. That's as much as you get, though.
So to go to our cultural differences email from last week, apparently Europe's taste for horse also means they're not allowed to play games. I don't know. Because the horse is no longer an active participant in the European box art. So, there's still no additional details for this. It's been a week.
I don't think we're going to get them. I think it's, it's going to be the joy for all players that choose to either pick up the game themselves or watch somebody stream it to discover that at the end of the month, I rather feel.
So, you're saying this is the Tears of the Kingdom of June, where it's all about the joy of discovery. That's what the game is about.
Yes, yeah. Except, we won't get Numa demonstrating it for 10 minutes. Like, it'll be under even a tighter lock and key. Which I think the legitimate inference to draw from that is that it will be even more amazing when we do get the chance.
Okay, but what if we did get Numa playing this game for 10 minutes?
It would wind. He'd probably be as baffled as the rest of us. I'm gonna guess.
Like, what if he just they bring him out there like, we're gonna talk about Tears of the Kingdom, and they just put everybody 1-2 switch in his hand. They just hand him a smartphone and tell him to play. It would be fantastic. There have been more reports of about this game's quality. I will say that they have not substantially changed the narrative. So look forward to that, I guess. By the time this comes out, I might have written something about everybody 1-2 switch. That is not the article that is presently sitting on the website that I have yet to post. That's a different nightmare. But I have some thoughts about Nintendo compelling me to 1-2 switch that I want to get. I need to get off my chest. So we'll see how that goes. But that concludes the corrections segment of the show. Like I said, we don't make mistakes on the show. Other people make them, and then we reflect them back to you like a mirror on your soul. So, emails. They go to rfn at nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn at nintendoworldreport.com. John, prove to me you're not a robot by saying the email address. Oh, shit, he's a robot. I knew it. All right, well, putting that aside, it's rfn at nintendoworldreport.com. And Gil, would you read the first email this week?
Sure. JX writes, Dear RFN artisans, once again, Apple in their maybe I should read with a different tone. Once again, Apple in their self-aggrandizing ways announced their entry into the world of AR and VR with a $3,500 headset. A headset that, as we all understand, looks suspiciously like a piece of technology that Nintendo pioneered years back. Labo VR. While I don't want to outright accuse Apple of swiping Nintendo's unique idea of putting a screen in front of your eyes to simulate a virtual environment, the similarities are uncanny. In retaliation, what existing device, phones, watches, semi-transparent all-in-ones, etc., should Nintendo undercut Apple by making with their own cardboard technology?
I love the idea of the cardboard Apple Watch, just even before the days of smartwatches, where it's just like, oh well, this is resistant to pressure, down to this far under the surface or whatever. It's like, well, it's cardboard, so it gets soggy immediately, so just don't go in the water.
Right.
I hadn't contemplated that Apple's $3,500 VR set that face scans you as you wear it. For reasons.
Maybe Nintendo's Labo watch could recognize two types of activity: Pikmin Bloom and Pokemon Go.
How would it recognize when I'm asleep?
That's something that no one's been able to solve yet, apparently.
At this moment, I'm picturing a cardboard Pokeball called Pokemon Go plus.
Pokemon Go plus minus.
Yeah, you get to fold it yourself.
Oh, that's it's got a 200-step instruction with the fun video.
Yeah, and mostly, by most reports, that's the most fun part of the whole process. So,
yeah, I mean, I can believe it. So, you've got me here. You know what? Sold. But I'm gonna buy one of those. I do think Pokemon Teeth has a cardboard opportunity here. So I'm thinking a smart toothbrush made of cardboard. Again, I understand that it might make things a little bit difficult to use that toothbrush, but I trust Nintendo's cardboard engineers to solve the problem.
Yeah, you just stick a Joy-Con in there and somehow, the job's done. Yeah. Yeah,
well, so it uses the HD rumble. Remember that phrase?
I do, yeah.
It uses the HD rumble to make sure that you get a good vibration on the brush heads to get the maximum coverage on your teeth, so your teeth shine with the radiance that only HD Smile can produce.
Amazing.
I mean, it's no worse than the bullshit that Apple came up with what was it? Audio ray tracing?
Audio ray tracing.
Which was another phrase they said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ray tracing. Audio in its famous form, array. I just can't
that sounds
anymore.
Like something that you fire at Venom to get the symbiote to disengage from it.
I just can't pretend anymore. I've lost the ability to deal with just the Paul marketingest shit in the world. This is
well, speaking of stuff that Apple has stolen from Nintendo. Didn't Nintendo back in their toy maker days have some sort of walkie-talkie that used light to transmit the voice?
Sure.
I think that sounds familiar.
I think that was the thing. I'll need to double check. Maybe we'll have corrections next week, but
no.
there was something.
But that would be a really cheap way to transmit data, which very much sounds like something Nintendo would have done.
Yes,
right.
that we've talked about it a few times over the years. That was their angle with those things, wasn't it? It was like, well, it's something that's sort of already out there on the market, but how could we do it with most of the functionality, but significantly less of the cost? And that's
we made an RC car that only turns left.
Precisely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking maybe they could be a bit more liberal. Nintendo's venture into the scripted entertainment, right? What if they could do a series of cardboard stop motion animations recreating Apple TV originals? So, like cardboard stop motion Ted Lasso, for instance.
Okay, all right. I'm in on this.
I think it could work. I mean, it seems like a lot of work, to be honest. But even though it would be cardboard figures, but still, I guess that's how they originally did South Park, right? with cardboard before they got digital.
David Attenborough has another series on Apple TV Plus about dinosaurs, where
imagine the grandeur of the cardboard dinosaurs. I love it.
So the funny thing is, and y'all are going to think I'm insane, but I'm absolutely serious, and I've never been able to find it again. My movie group one time stumbled across a YouTube channel that had like 500 views total, but did shot-for-shot recreations of movies using cardboard figures the person running the channel created. I mean, complete shot-for-shot remake of full feature films. And there were dozens of them. I'm simply saying we just need to find this man and hire him to run this service.
Contract, and just have an entire shadow service where it's just all the content is there.
Recreated as cardboard. What would we? I mean, a Nintendo TV Plus doesn't feel right.
The Friday night baseball games are going to be probably the hardest, arguably, because the action is quite dynamic, isn't it?
I mean, it just can't be live, unfortunately. Well, maybe it could be. You could just have it'd be a slight delay, but it's okay.
It could be like one of those old, I don't know, there are some toys that kind of work like that, where you've got maybe like a board and you've got like the Joy-Con, I suppose, vibrating under it and making little cardboard footballer figures move.
That was one of the things, like in the sort of like the more general Labo kit, right? Was those sort of, you could make those things kind of your own design that with the Joy-Con kind of vibrating it along.
Right. So somehow if it could, I don't know. If it could somehow reproduce what the action is on screen.
He's vibrating his way down to first right now. Trying beat out the play.
So Apple has their credit card, which I'm sure gives you great offers and is definitely not going to have some weird-ass interest rate that's going to make you suffer later. So, obviously, you could make a credit card out of cardboard. I mean, we're like, my current credit card from my bank isn't even plasticky like credit cards usually are. It's literally paper. No, it's water-resistant-ish. But, if you hold it, it doesn't feel like an old credit card. It's paper. And the reality of the situation is I possibly never used a magnetic strip on it. So we're getting to the point where it's really just a proxy for the RFID reader in it. Well, Nintendo's already masters of RFID reading, as we talked about with Labo. So what I am suggesting is that Nintendo can put out their Nintendo Credit Plus program that you can tie to any Labo figurine you want and use that to pay for goods and services.
Amiibo, now I'm picturing George Clooney as Batman pulling out his Bat Amiibo card substitute.
Yeah, exactly. You can get that. Imagine the movie tie-ins they could get. They get somebody that just pulls up to this. What would be? I mean, it would have to be pulling out. Oh, I got. Take out your wallet. I can't figure out what the Jason Statham film is to do this, but it needs to be a Statham film.
So it's spoiled for choice. I'll tell you what. I mean, everybody's with the Summer Game Fest. The Keighley stuff is happening right now. But I mean, we don't need E3 because we got E4. Expendables 4 trailer dropped this week. With Statham, I think, is essentially getting a bump up the pecking order because Stallone is. And I think he might still be in it, but he's not going to be the lead. So it's all about the Stafe at this point.
So keep in mind, Meg 2 also had its first trailer drop a couple weeks ago.
I mean, is there such a thing as too much Statham? No, obviously.
No, obviously. I'm going to steal this joke from the Discord. The Sonic game that got announced today is about rescuing what the press release describes as, quote, is it big animals or giant animals?
So
rather than regular-sized animals.
That's the one thing I always thought when I played the original Sonic back in the day. It was just like, I mean, yeah, it's nice to see the cute animals exiting that sort of metallic containment unit or whatever when you beat the boss, but a bit small, aren't they? Can't we have saved something like a buffalo or something bigger?
What if it's the same type of animal, but just larger? Like it's still just a rabbit, but it's a giant rabbit. So, Ploufim in the Discord noted that this is a tie-in to Meg 2. Because what if he's just rescuing a megalodon from Robotnik?
No, well, you don't want that becoming one of Robotnik's servants, do you? To be fair, yeah. So I mean, there is an imperative there.
So now I want Statham in this multiplayer Sonic game, but so Statham we'll say it's in Meg 2, goes to a gas station. He's going to get gas for some small boat he's going to take out on the water to go hunt down this megalodon.
Doesn't even need a bigger boat. That's just how much harder he is than Roy Scheider.
It's a jet ski. He wants a smaller boat. And he opens up his wallet and reaches into it, and out of it he pulls a Pyra amiibo. And it gets at no point did the wallet have any dimensionality. It looks just like a regular wallet. Like there's no way that was in there. And he gets ready to tap it on the cash register and goes, "Oh shit." And he puts it back in his wallet and it disappears like a magic trick. It's like it had negative space stuff. And he reaches in and he pulls out a Mithra amiibo. He goes, "I almost used my work card." And then he rings it up with the Mithra amiibo and puts it back. Done. I did it. That's the product. Fuck you, Apple. You can't top that. You have your credit card? Nah. I'm gonna go ahead and buy all kinds of adult products with my Mithra. I'm gonna get drunk with my Mithra amiibo. That's my plan for this weekend. You're welcome. God, I'm really mad. I missed the pre-order for those two.
So, as someone who's consumed probably the most Apple TV Plus content here, first of all, so I was a big fan of Foundation, Isaac Asimov's Foundation, and of course I've talked about that show on the Patreon episodes back when we did those, and basically I said I really enjoyed Lee Pace and Jared Harris just basically in a scenery chewing contest. It was amazing.
It does feel kind of appropriate they'd be together because Jared Harris was in Mad Men. And Lee Pace was in *Halt and Catch Fire*, which was like Mad Men for a later decade in a different industry.
Yes.
So why shouldn't they get to go cross the streams, bring the decades together?
Right. So maybe Nintendo could bring them back again. They could call their show whatever Foundation, I guess, like Nintendo's Foundation, but somehow it turns into a cardboard eating contest. Who can ingest the most cardboard? And it's just episode after episode of Lee Pace and Jared Harris just eating that Labo.
What if it's just Hot Ones, but with cardboard instead of wings? So they're just putting increasingly ridiculously high Scoville on cardboard.
It just reminds me of the whole competitive hot dog eating thing, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, but can you actually beat a bear?" And it's like, "No, they can't." No one can beat a bear.
Turns out bears have remarkable capacity to eat.
There's no chance. No way.
Because they're evolutionarily disposed to do it and then not eat for 3 months. Turns out they're very good eaters.
The question is, who is the acting equivalent of the bear in this scenario when it comes to chewing scenery? Either Russell Crowe, maybe? If you've seen The Pope's Exorcist, I'm sure you probably feel like he's had good value out of that particular restaurant where he went voraciously chewing through things.
It's a not an all-you-can-eat restaurant, sir. I'm trying to think what other fine, there's always been the rumors of the Apple car. Like that's been this thing that's been circulating for years. And Apple's building a car, which. So their VR goggles are $3,500. They're so expensive, and I am not joking. This is a very serious statement that they brought Disney out to go we've got Disney's involvement. They're going to let you watch Disney Plus on these. It's like, fuck, I can do that on my TV. That's not helpful. what if instead we got the Nintendo car? And yes, it is not made of cardboard because you can't have your car. Fuck, they would make it out of cardboard just for the pun. It's Nintendo.
It's just that weird Clive Sinclair vehicle, but made out of cardboard. That's what I'm thinking.
It'd be everybody's car -D board. Oh, god damn it! So it's going to be.
Would the car only be able to turn left?
No, but it would be powered rather than being powered by batteries, which is a fine way of storing energy. It's going to be powered entirely by coiled rubber bands. So they're just you put it on the charger and it just coils your rubber bands all night.
Of course, you have to carry your charger and probably the batteries for a charger.
Well, they're not going to sell. It's not going to come with a charger anymore because everybody's got chargers, so it's fine. You plug it into the wall, sold separately, and all it does is it winds the rubber bands around themselves, and then when you're done, you just release it, and off you go.
Don't forget to actually put the control stick bit in the middle, though. Or definitely don't put it the wrong way around.
No.
That could be very bad.
No, that would be a disaster. And make sure to calibrate it before you start driving. You're going to plow right into a wall.
Yeah, I don't... Oh, well, there is one thing. People miss Mario Paint, right? I do,
sure.
Kind of. But Nintendo has refused to remake or re-release it or anything like that. I assume it's because they can't be bothered to manufacture a new mouse peripheral. Yeah. So why not a cardboard mouse? But to really stick it to Apple, to really go and retaliate and just copy their designs, of course, you have to stick a red Joy-Con under the mouse. Where, so that the IR
there we go
thing can read badly the surface that the mouse is on.
Yes.
But also it makes the mouse unusable when you do that because there's a freaking thing sticking out of the mouse at the bottom. So that's it. I'm making fun of the mouse that had the USB charger under it.
Oh no, I know. I mean, You're right. That deserves to be made fun of. But what if you could make it one of those pens that can be detected on a touchscreen that cost $800 because Apple's sticker on them?
Mm-hmm.
A cardboard pen that works on the Switch screen. It's $150, and you have to roll the cardboard yourself. It's just a flat piece of cardboard with a resistive piece that you slide into the middle after you roll it. You've got to roll it up real tight though, or it's not going to hold together. $150, undercutting the Apple product by $150. It's just about saving money. This is the economical and environmentally friendly option. They can make that part of the marketing. Everything here is made 100% recycled materials.
You could announce this with a piece of software, a game that uses... What about like Mario Paint VR, where you are wearing the Labo headset and you have to use that stylus on the screen at the same time.
So, one of the Mario Party games lets you use multiple switches to like put them together and draw that route or something.
Yeah.
What if your solution here is you have your drawing surface, which is a switch, and then you have the Labo, which has a switch in it. And so now you're looking at the Switch that you're holding, but you're not actually seeing it. You're seeing an AR version of the Switch because the Switch that you're holding is not the Switch that you're seeing because that's the Switch in front of your eyes. And it's using the Labo camera, the camera on one of the Joy-Con you've strapped to the side of your head to create a projected image and track the other Switch. It's like it's the revival of the whole teeth chomping thing. It's all there. All these options, and it's so economical. It's just 2 switches, 2 sets of Joy-Cons, and a $150 pen, which makes it about 1/3 the price of the Apple product. So you're good. I think Nintendo can do their own worldwide developer conference next week or next year, rather. I don't know. And then they can go out there and say, no. Apple said this computer is for the Star Wars sounds of the world, which is saying they made a computer for the top 1% of the film industry, Like, you can't micro broadcast your target audience any more than that. Except Nintendo can go out there, step in front of the camera and go, this product is for one man. His name is Dave. That's it. We have made the most exclusive product in the world. $500. Done. Pay it.
Now, JX uses the example of the AR and VR headset and Labo, but there's another case where Nintendo and Apple made products so similar that it's, and at almost the same time, I think it's kind of hard to tell who copied who, but Apple had these MacBooks, I guess, that had the keyboard so thin that the slightest bit of dust would get into the keys and it would just fuck the whole thing up. And Nintendo had their own version of that, of course, with the Joy-Con and the Joy-Con Drift.
I like where your head's at, because now you're saying Joy-Con Drift isn't a flaw. It's because they're out on the bleeding edge of technology.
Well, I thought that went without saying. Yeah,
but
just look at the things.
But so here's the thing, Guillaume. It goes without saying to us, the learned and erudite. And it's therefore our responsibility to educate those people who don't have that same depth of comprehension. We have to make sure they know that their complaints aren't valid because they're actually complaining about Nintendo living out on the edge of the seat.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, people, read my teeth. The Joy-Con has an IR thing on it. So,
there we
of
go.
Course.
I'll tell you what, if George Bush had phrased it like that, he wouldn't have been a one-term president.
That's true. You're right. Oh, man. You'd have been a zero-term president? I do think we need to Apple keeps buying these health companies, these health technology companies, and of course we already have Pokemon Sleep.
Pokemon Plus. Certainly,
with the Pokemon Plus. I feel like that's too involved. What if I could just put a Labo on my pillow and wrap it in a piece of card? What if I could make my pillow out of cardboard and put the Labo in, or the Joy-Con in it? So it's Labo pillow set. And so you just rest your head on the cardboard, and as you move, it jostles the Joy-Con, and then they can track how soundly you're sleeping.
Mm.
And it'll be very comfortable. Cardboard, known for its comfort. I think we're at least 6 steps ahead of Apple at this point. Technologically, business, and the only place we're behind them is the absolute Paul marketingist bullshit that they've been putting together. So we just need John for that. That's his specialty.
Of course, like if
Chief
Apple
Marketing
were to,
Officer John Lindemann.
If Apple were to design like a pillow, the first thing it would do would probably to remove the insides, just give you like the pillowcase to save space. Why? Because thinner is always better.
That's true. This is just a pillow sheet. No. It's an Apple pillow.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the first thing you'd do is probably have DRM for your pillow.
You didn't need all that memory foam or all those feathers or whatever the fuck. Sign
into your Apple account before you sleep. Oh man, now I'm thinking about it, and this is actually the dark and twisted future. So I think it's time for us to move on to the next email. Greg, would you please read the next email?
Appropriately enough, it's someone identifying us Meowth for bad future.
Oh, it's us.
Right, so, oh man, I hope predating this works. I'm sending this email from the distant year of 20 redacted, and things are real tough. The phone I stole from the Sears Museum of Pre-Alexa Antiques had an RFN dated from sometime around here, and you cats were discussing Nintendo following up on successful consoles. The proof was right there in the pattern. I can't give any details about the next system or about poor John's fate, but I can say firsthand...
Is that why he's not here this week?
With 100% certainty that the thing the Switch passed the baton to ate shit, and its real still doubtful whether Metroid Prime 4 will be big enough to bail Nintendo out this time. Maybe you could save it, or maybe I'm accidentally setting the wheels in motion like friggin' Skynet. Not even JJ Dream Factory could have cooked up something as whimsically catastrophic. Oh crap, how did the Disney Plus police find this hideout already? You've got to warn everyone that the Galgun franchise is going to take the... Oh, and then that's it. That's all we got. It's very 12 Monkeys, this. I feel like, these sorts of like phone mess, the only way they can kind of essentially communicate with the past is like leaving weird messages that are reconstructed from answering machines, which ends up just forming a time loop that dooms everything anyway.
I mean, what you've described is the Galgun franchise, where the entire premise is Cupid comes down to some guy who can't find love.
There was that truly bizarre circumstance just recently with that sort of spin-off that was Intercreates did, that was essentially almost like a sort of continuation of their classic Castlevania style games that they did for Bloodstained, but they did one that was a Galgun spin-off. I did not even know that it was a Galgun spin-off because it was called Grim Guardians.
Yes.
So, like, I guess they just thought the GG was going to be enough, but, like, I just thought, well, people love companies like alliterative names. I didn't really, you know what I mean? It wasn't, my first thought is, well, it must be Galgun, obviously. But then, at some point, like, there was kind of some objection was raised from somebody that might have been infringing on some, kind of copyright or trademark that was held elsewhere. So then they did call it like Gal Guardians and made it more explicit, and that's how I found out.
Weird.
Bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. Apparently it's a pretty good game. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, as you'd expect. I mean, I really like those, the Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon 1 and 2.
I thought you were going to say Galgun. I was like, since when?
I mean, look, rail shooters can be fun.
Yeah, no, I have enjoyed, kind of, the sort of railgun games, but I've not played one of those. But it just seems, how bizarre is that to have a spin-off to a series, but then like kind of try and keep it on the down low? Like, what is the point of that? I don't get it.
The only thing I can think of is that I almost wonder if the game was so far away that maybe they were like, well, I mean, we made this as a Galgun game, but we realized that it might have more potential sales if people don't realize.
They don't know.
What if we just don't tell people it's a Galgun game, and they're just like, hey, we can get away with this. We don't have to pretend. But, I mean, look, whatever P-Cube touches turns to horniness. I don't know that P-Cube, I guess, like, let's see, does P-Cube have a non-horny game on their front page? Yes, Arc Runner. So I stand corrected, but they do like their, whatever term you want to use for that. And Gal Guardians Demon Purge.
Demon Purge, yeah, that's the subtitle, which is a little bit, I mean, I don't really need a subtitle when it's like a new sub-series. Is that you think you'd save that for like the second one, assuming there would be one?
It's a little horny, but like it comparatively seems toned down. So yeah, maybe it really was just like, well, what if we just didn't? What if we just didn't put the name on it? People didn't realize. And then they got called out and had to do it. It came with an art book? A 40-page art book for this fucking game. Jesus. All right, anyway.
Yes. Well, but assuming that isn't the, butterfly flapping its wings that then triggers the end of civilization.
I mean, what a way to go, though. Let's be honest. Like, they died as they lived. Horny. What is this future Switch replacement that we've been warned about?
Well, yeah, I'm having a little bit of trouble finding what the question is in this email.
Yeah, I guess
it's a
like
warning.
The implication is that perhaps there's a certain fatalism at work here about just like they are doomed to not follow up a really successful platform with another one because they just haven't done it for ages. Like, you know, I mean, what's the best example of that? You know, because even, you know, like GBA to DS, like both were successful, and DS was even more successful than GBA. But there was nothing ordinary about it. There was nothing like orderly about it. You know, because it was just this panicked, like, oh shit, you know, PSP's coming. We've got to get new hardware out there now, and just like throw some stuff together and call it a third pillar because we might end up just abandoning it anyway. And all like it felt more by sort of accident and sort of, you know, hastiness than by design. That's very much not what we're looking at with Switch, is it? You know, because it feels like it's actually been elongated the life cycle by the after effects of the pandemic and everything, rather than truncated by, you know, Sony's entrance into the portable space in the case of GBA. So yeah, it's a very different scenario when you've seen some of those, you know, in the past where it's like, well, yeah, you know, probably waited too long to move on from Wii. Obviously, you know, the Super Nintendo had quite a long life cycle that got somewhat elongated by the delays to the Nintendo 64, and that didn't go that well. Like there's plenty of precedent for this going wrong, is the point.
I've got a theory, and I don't love it, but I think I'm onto something here. What does Nintendo do after a successful system when it's time to move on? Very consistent.
A lot of the time they've like sort of, I guess this mix, but there's been a fair amount of sticking with some sort of branding in those cases, right? Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 3DS, Wii U.
Wii U.
Yeah. Now, sometimes it ended up turning out real bad, you know, like...
So, that's true, but that's not where I'm going with. Guillaume, what do you think?
Backwards compatibility? No, not really.
No. That their decision to do backwards compatibility is seemingly randomly driven. No. So I'm
you mean like take out an input, an output? I mean,
you're getting closer.
Okay.
So what I'm looking at is whenever Nintendo follows on a major success. So like coming out of the Game Boy era, and I'm including the Game Boy Advance in this, into the DS, and from Wii into Wii U, they add a screen. They say, success with one screen. Yes. Success with two screens. Yes. And they've had mixed results with that. DS, they added a screen. Huge success. Monstrous success. Coming out of the DS, they didn't add a screen. 3DS, had to bail it out. Only had two screens. Could have had three. Might have fixed the problem.
Well, you know, kind of. You know, the whole parallax barrier thing is kind of like two screens.
But then they took it out. So really, like, it's still a two-screen system, even though it says 3DS in it. Wii U obviously added a second screen. Obviously not a success. Switch, back to one screen. So we're on the cycle now. It's time to add a second screen. But I don't think they're going to make the Switch have a screen on the back. Or have a clamshell design where there's another screen inside it. Or a screen that pops out of the top and surprises you with its sudden secondary screenness. No. I think that's probably just not really the way that they're going to think through it. But I instead think they're going to look to an old competitor. I think what we're being warned about here is the Wonder Swan. I know what you're thinking. James, the Wonder Swan, are you insane? Yes. But that's not why I'm saying that. The Wonder Swan had multiple sets of buttons on it.
It was basically a Tate type of stuff, wasn't it? You know, like the way people do with flip grip on Switch.
Yes.
Where it was built into the hardware to have the extra set of buttons to just do that without any kind of accessory or detachable Joy-Cons.
It had 4 face buttons on one side and 2 face buttons on the other. And the thing is, you could only use 2 face buttons for games, like A and B. All the other buttons were just to facilitate a D-pad, depending on how you were holding it. They were otherwise duplicative. But it was about giving you flexibility. And the Joy-Cons are about giving you flexibility. Now, their flexibility is to resolve the future-looking cutting-edge design. The WonderSwan was about gameplay options, but instead of adding a second screen, what if they added a second configuration? See, I think the Switch successor we're being warned about isn't a Tate mode system. It's a system with the screen in a plus shape and a set of Joy-Cons on each end. That way you can play multiplayer in person. One person reaches through your arms to play from one angle, and you reach through their arms to play from the other. You both have your own screen. But additionally, that's 4 Joy-Con they can sell you. So when your Joy-Con start to fail, you just rotate the console 90 degrees, and you've got a fresh new set available for you at all times. I can see why they think this was a good idea, and I can see why future Meowth wouldn't want to warn us about the specifics, because obviously that's too specific, and people would lose their lives because Nintendo's internal people would find us and come for us because they wouldn't believe in time travel. They would believe if we had this. Now, putting it in the dock is difficult. You got to the dock actually closes around it clamshell style, but it looks pretty cool. But I understand why it failed.
Now, I think I'm picturing what you're describing, but the way I would do it, instead of making it a plus shape, I would... So, yeah, like I think that Nintendo is going to have 2 screens, but it's got to be one in the front, one in the back. Mm-hmm. And
how would you do the kickstand?
I don't think you need the kickstand. I haven't thought about the kickstand in a long time.
That's because you don't have a Switch Pro.
That's when it just turns into one of those desk calendars, basically.
Oh, it's just like A-frames?
Yeah,
Right.
Well, the front screen is like the calendar where you've just got the big image, and then the other side is where you've actually got the calendar itself with the days and stuff. So it's like for other people to see your menu screen that you have to blindly reach around the back and touch. It's like Vita, the back touch, everybody loved it. That was the thing most people thought was excellent about Vita. But it's like, what if it was also a screen and took up way more energy as a result?
And you just had to guess
brilliant.
where things were on it.
But to complete the description, so like it's a square screen. There's a screen on both sides of this square thing. The Joy-Con would lock into it the way that you described, like in a plus shape. But basically, one person would look at one side, and another person would play on the other side, but would necessarily be like 90 degrees off, basically like a Mobius strip of a 2-player game. And the first game available for it is going to be Kid Icarus Uprising 2. And because Nintendo acknowledges that this is a really weird way a really bizarre way to be playing a 2-player game on a handheld, it's going to include a small folding chair that's kind of like twisty.
There we go.
And like one person's going to sit on that to be able to comfortably play against the other person.
All right, but let me add to this, because I just had a thought. Imagine if we gave Sakurai's wife the freedom to design a menu system that stretches to a screen and a control surface the player can't see. Think of the absolute control scheme crimes, or rather menu crimes she's going to create in that ecosystem. I think we're going to be dealing with like next level degree of, wait, what the fuck did you just make?
I'm just thinking of a way to sort of circumvent it, because you've got this sort of front screen, back screen thing. Like on the front screen where you're actually playing it, it's like a normal menu that's clear and works. And then on the other side, it's the Sakurai style menus. It's like, no, that's okay. It's okay, Sakurai. Look, it's your menu. Secretly, you've got the one that works, haven't you?
I can only imagine that when you're not playing with another person, when you're playing solo, the second screen displays the same game but mirrored. Basically, you're seeing through the looking,
so it's marketing. Everybody sees you playing it, and they go, "I want a piece of that myself."
Yeah, yeah. You imagine when they can see the honk thing for Mario Kart 8 on the other side, just come, oh wow, oh my god.
Oh, that's it. That's how we're going to get Xenoblade X. The gamepad will be on the back, and then the regular game will be on the front.
Yep, so everybody on the trains are going to be looking at just all that as like information about nodes or whatever.
Excuse me, sir. Can you warp me to the Palace Falls node? Just should be somewhere in the southeast corner. There it is. Thank you, sir.
I can only imagine that if, following your theory, James, where like every successful Nintendo console adds a screen, like if they had a string of at least 5 successful console, each more successful than the last, we could get a cube. We could literally finally get the GameCube.
The true GameCube,
Yeah, and we would finally fix the problem of controlling a 3D camera for a 3D game. Now, like, they would be able to complete...
You are the camera!
Exactly. Like, they would be able to finally give up that second stick that they never liked, the C-stick.
Begrudgingly added.
Yeah, and so you're playing Zelda, and like you basically like you turn it on, and you're like, what the fuck? Why is Link facing me, and I can't see anything? And then you turn the cube around. You turn the cube around, and like, oh, finally, I have the behind the back view. But if you want to see what's on the ground, you look up. Oh, okay, like you can see the overhead view, and of course you can, turn that cube again around, and you see from the ground. You see the sky.
Is it just like a turn the beat around, turn the cube around permutation going to be the theme song for it? Is it going to make a horrible rumbling sound as opposed to the nice click?
I have no idea.
Sound of stone being dragged across the ground. There's something deeply upsetting about, like, I'm just playing Animal Crossing and I turn it the wrong way and suddenly Tom Nook stares back at you.
If they make it sufficiently heavy duty, maybe like think of the Mario Party games where you actually roll the dice physically. You just chuck your GameCube 2
there we go
on the ground.
It's GAMEC2BE. That feels like a very Nintendo thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I am horrified and scared for my family. And yeah, I feel like this is the kind of thing that you would send a killbot back in time to prevent from happening. So, but yeah, no, this checks out. This might be it.
Excellent.
I had contemplated what if Mario Kart Super Circuit was just a trial run where the game comes into your home, because also, you build a course and you drive Mario Kart through it. What if this is a game that's, as opposed to toys to life, it's games to life, where the console itself is sentient, and in games like Zelda, as opposed to fighting a Talus, you fight the game console, acting as the Talus. You get to be Link. Now, obviously, you can't stab your gamepad with a sword.
I'm just picturing a giant sort of construct of cardboard boxes where this sort of shining screen cuboid is like the jewel, the kind of shiny stone that you have to actually damage in question.
I just love the fact that even Nintendo recognized the Talus as a comedy enemy and just puts this comedy song behind it. And
and then made it goofier in this one with the platforms being bolted onto it with the goblins.
It just doesn't care. It's just like, what? Oh, hi. Yeah. What are these guys? Okay. All the other enemies menacing. The Talus and the to a lesser extent, the big goblins. I can't remember what they're called with the one eye.
Oh, Hinox.
Hinoxes. Yeah, they get these, like, I'm a big dumb idiot songs.
Mm.
They get what would be the theme song to John Candy's character in a movie. It's like, this is great. So yeah, like, imagine a Hinox, but it's a Switch. So it's a big cardboard fat monster, and the eye's just the Switch, just plugged into the top, turned sideways. It's gonna take a shitload of time to assemble the stall Hinox.
I do appreciate the sort of punchline in the email where it talks about, that obviously some unspecified length of time has passed since the redaction, and it's sort of the fall of civilization or whatever, and the next Nintendo thing came out and it wasn't very successful, and then it says it's real doubtful whether Metroid Prime 4 will be big enough to bail them out, i.e. it still hasn't come out. That's the joke that's hidden in there. I appreciate that. I
was just in the Discord earlier today going, Pikmin 4 won't be real until I see it. because at this point, all we've got is it's got a character creator. It's like, okay, come on.
It's been so long. It's been so long since the third one. It actually came out. It's been so long. Yeah, the first time, obviously.
It's been so long since they told us it was almost done.
Yeah, it's been so long since they said it existed and that it was kind of done. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. Just drop that little kind of trailer about, well, you know, you actually... So, Olimar crashed and then a bunch of people were sent to rescue Olimar, but they just repeated his mistake or something.
Mm-hmm. Has anybody just contemplated that Olimar shouldn't be allowed to drive? Like...
Well, yeah. I think in the Pikmin universe, in the story, it's kind of established that while he might not be the best pilot, also the shuttles are not the highest quality.
Yeah, the kind of the company is like set him up to fail kind of thing.
Yeah,
or
cutting corners.
Maybe he should just look for a new job. Is the economy that bad?
That's the thing. Surely after the second one, like, you should be minted now, right? Like, because well, if you got all the goodies in the second one, like, you earned loads of. It was worth a lot in that currency, enough to clear the debt of the company and whatever else. So
that's the problem, though. If you earn it on the company time, it's the company's money.
Yeah, maybe that's it. See, he didn't actually get any of the rewards for that, perhaps. So he's still got to go out there and make the big bucks from whatever he's up to. So, but I do love the fact that seemingly like professional sort of rescuers were sent after him, and they have also failed. So now it still somehow comes down to one person that's woefully under-equipped, relying on sentient vegetables.
It's got very large woman who swallowed a fly vibes going on in this particular universe. It's like, well, we'll just send more ships after him. This will definitely not fail. Oh, it failed again. They keep crashing on the same planet. Have they considered maybe just not going there anymore? Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they should just pick
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if they sort of tried to offer any kind of explanation for why. Because obviously in the third game, it's a different set of people, isn't it? Yeah, that you initially play as. Why they would have been going there, I've completely forgotten. It's been
they're looking for juice. They're looking for food.
It's just
they're
all
from a
about,
different planet.
Yeah, they're from somewhere else. Yeah, and they need food rather than trinkets.
Yeah.
Okay, so they don't know. This isn't a situation where like we've escaped Mira. You know where we're gonna go? Mira. We're gonna go back. It'll definitely be better this time. Oh, the planet's still haunted.
And yeah, like they basically find Olimar like in some sort of nightmare scenario where he keeps like his suit. Like Pikmin 1 and 2 and 3 to a certain extent are all about like the horrors of capitalism or I don't know, like Olimar is trapped by his own suit that kind of feeds him drugs to soothe him or something when there's danger around. You know?
That sounds pretty sweet, I'll be honest.
Yeah, so he's stuck in a place where like it's always very dangerous, so he keeps getting knocked out and can't escape. Anyway.
That sounds pretty sick, I'm going to be honest. Like, if I had something that's like, hey, your stress level's way too high. Boop! I mean,
anyway, all this to say, Pikmin is pretty awesome.
It's gonna be nice for a Pikmin game to get its, you know, we've had re-releases, but to have its first launch on a system that does have a significant a very significant one, install base size is good, you know, because obviously 1 and 2 the first time round, you know, didn't have, there weren't that many GameCubes out there, and good God, the third one the first time round didn't have many prospective customers, so, you know, this will be, like I say, you had the new Play Control versions on Wii, where there were a lot of Wii owners, and then the Pikmin 3 Deluxe, but it's never the same kind of, and not that there's ever going to be that much buzz around something like Pikmin, I guess, but it's still much less so when it's that game that came out, you know, this many years ago, and you know people know basically what it is.
Yeah, I hope that we're not going to be in a kind of Mario plus Rabbids situation where, yeah, sure, like the game sold well, Pikmin 3 Deluxe sold well on Switch, but then people were like, yeah, I don't like this. And so when the sequel comes out, it's just like it just doesn't sell nearly as much.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, it does kind of show you some of the differences. We talked about this before with that kind of window that you have early in a system's life where people might be more willing to give something a shot if it's a certain kind of game. So even though there might not be as many owners of that console out there, it's actually better to come early in a generation. I think that probably helped with, as we've said quite a few times, like with Xenoblade 2 performing maybe better than otherwise would have been the case. And maybe that helped with the first Mario and Rabbids. And then, you kind of take that away with the second one, and it does not seem to have sold as well. I would like to get to that at some point. But
I liked it enough when I rented it, but I haven't gone back to it.
Yeah, the thing is, there's just basically the past 6 weeks have just been 2 games, Xenoblade and Zelda.
It's fair.
Doesn't really suggest I'm going to be getting to much of anything anytime soon, I have to say. But I assume it'll become a little bit more dynamic as the year continues.
I did hit the very bottom of Zelda, so I'm free, and now I'm confused and scared. So it's I'm free. What now? Oh no.
But yeah, it does raise the question. Obviously the gag about Metroid Prime 4 still not coming out. Obviously, Pikmin 4 we know he's coming out, he's real. You have to grapple with that fact next month. But late in this cycle, how well could those things do? Would it have been better to hold them off early in another console? Well, certainly if that console flops, you'd be wishing you hadn't. So that is some of the risk with that. But it sort of raises the question, what might be being held back for the start of a new cycle, rather than, because obviously Zelda, they've had good results with with ending up kind of holding off Zelda for the launch of a new console. In the past, haven't they? But they've released it now, and I'm sure they don't regret it from the point of view of how many it sold. I mean, I think it's already in Japan, where I don't think Breath of the Wild was relatively as good of a seller as it was outside of Japan, but I think Tears of the Kingdom is already over 75% of Breath of the Wild sales. That's pretty quick work. So, like I said, I'm sure they don't have too many regrets or anything, but it might have been useful as that real kind of hey, here's something really substantial, because that's always the thing that people will kind of scupper their desire maybe to get in on something straight away. Is everything that comes out at launch is not very substantial. It's stuff that was whipped up pretty fast on new technology. It's sort of trading off novelty a lot of the time, and there's not much substance to it. Whereas, when you've had a Zelda game there to say, hey, this is Zelda, this is as kind of epic as Nintendo can muster. Well, it worked with Twilight Princess and it worked with Breath of the Wild.
I think the problem, though, is it's not going to work across the 6 screens of the GameCube.
I mean, there's only one thing that can, in that case, I would say, and that's Star Fox Guard 2.
There we go. There you go.
Wow.
So, we did it. The killer app.
That may lead to the nightmare future that Meowth is describing, I think.
Is Star Fox Guard really a worse killer app launch than Wii U had? It's pretty brutal. But
although it does very much strike you as a sort of thing that, I mean, I played Star Fox Guard. I actually had a bit of fun with it. This is not me just saying it's completely dog shit or anything. But in terms of its existence and its sort of reason to exist, it feels like something that if it was going to exist at all, it probably should have been at the beginning rather than 2016, wasn't it? Or 15? I forget which one, but it was late. It was, basically after all the shooting had stopped.
Yeah, exactly. But also, it could launch with what is a real killer app. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. 6-player mode where everybody gets their own screen. That does mean someone has to sit on the floor under the cube, which you will be able to buy a docking stand that is glass, so you can sit under it and
it's
look
kind
up
of contained in another glass sort of cube itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you can get an Apple pillow to cushion your,
that's right.
For your head.
No, this is a Nintendo house, Gil. We're getting the Labo pillow.
Okay.
But it's like a glass coffee table. You just you lay down on a little those little rolling beds that mechanics have to go under cars. You roll under the table and look up at your screen.
And then you can be like, okay, yeah, I see the problem.
Exactly, yes. Oh, there's a leak right there. Everybody else is sitting around it, except for the player on top, who has a dedicated stand on the table, like so that the pressure is distributed, so it doesn't shatter the glass onto the person below him. And then they look down at their screen. It's like a bar stool they sit on. This is extra. Remember, we talked about the way to make money in retail is to sell accessories. So like Amiibo, extra controllers, a large glass coffee table with a perching stand for somebody to see the game on, and a rolling bed for the person under it so they can look up at it. And this is Mario Kart Deluxe. So people will pay for the premium. Or maybe they didn't, and that's why Meowth's writing us from the far-flung future. If only they had also included the Wii Wheel with this device, it would have been fine. It
could finally bring Madden back to Nintendo platforms with that whole, like, Vita back touch, but it's actually a screen thing, where, like, you have to crowdsource, like, commuters, fellow commuters when you're on the train. So, like, you are sort of enacted being a real player, right? Because like you're playing on the front screen, but then just random commuters are like touching the back screen to call plays for you, and you're like, really? That you're gonna call that screen again? They're gonna see it coming.
Why are we doing a goal line dive from the 35? This is stupid.
Yeah, they're not going to choose sensible stuff, are they? And they're that.
I don't even have a fullback on this roster.
The social unrest that inevitably results from that.
Why are we punting? It's first down.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But then again, someone's like just so hard into the no punt doctrine. It's like 4th and 25 at your own 10, and he won't punt for you. Come on. And
he's going to call.
The complete collapse of the social fabric that causes on, it starts at public transport, but it soon spreads. And then that's it. We're left with Meowth trying to send desperate dispatches back to us to try and prevent it. And somehow it ties into Galgun, but we're still not really clear on that.
Actually, you've got a point there, because one person is playing the game on offense. Opposite him is the person playing on defense. And then to his immediate right is the person calling his plays. To his left is the person calling the opposing plays. So they can't see each other because they're also opposite each other. And so you have in this like collapsing social fabric, you'd have the defense call that's going to be, I'm sure, something dumb. They're going to be like, run a passing defense play when it's third and inches.
It's the dying days of Greg Williams' tenure with the Jets as defensive coordinator, is what you're telling me.
Defend for the deep ball. Why? It's fourth and less than a yard. Nope. I need 5 in deep coverage. Oh, look, you got it. Fight. Just fight on the sidelines right there. In the stadium with you. It'll be like watching a real game where the teams hate each other. And then the bottom screen can be the top screen is definitely a top-down view of the field. It's your you're all 22? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, the coach's tape.
And then the bottom screen is just you looking up at the big, dumb, horrible monolith screen of the Jerry Dome.
Yeah, you realise that there's actually a screen on the underside of the Jerrytron. Like, it's like, oh, why did he put that in there? God, he really is profligate.
It's just obnoxious. It really must be really
Except
distracting.
the only image that's on it is that, recurring image of Show Jerry in the owner's box. It's the only thing it ever shows.
Honestly, if I had his kind of fuck you money, I would just have like a 70-foot tall screen right next to the box. That's just me in the box at all times.
There's just a sign behind it that just says, "I paid for this." Okay.
Oh, I think we've decoded the bad path. So Nintendo, if you are listening and work at Nintendo, and you are currently holding a prototype that has 2 or more screens on it, potentially up to 6, please notify your bosses that you have started the thing that will end with the T-10,000 squid monster thing from the Terminator ride.
The ride, yeah. No, that's true.
So that's your responsibility. Get on it. You need to stop this thing before it makes it to public.
But I'm more of a T1 person, where it's just like, well, no, the efforts to stop it are what kind of led to it in the first place. So I think by us saying this, they will then release a system that has the complete opposite philosophy and has no screen. And that is the flop that triggers the collapse
of
society.
Oh my god, that's what Everybody 1-2 Switch is. It's a game that you don't even look at the screen.
But this is the harbinger. This is where it starts.
Everybody 1-2 Switch is a command, but it's also a vision of a dark future.
Now I'm thinking about the bit in T2 where they break in and they've got the metallic skeletal hand in the glass case that they're going to destroy, but it's just a copy of Everybody 1-2 Switch.
It's just a rubber horse head.
Yeah.
Yes!
Just throw the horse head into the fucking ironworks at the end with the thumb just going down. The 2 thumbs point.
Damn it.
Melting into the molten metal. Beautiful.
Fuck. Alright. Alright, we put out the call, so the summer of whatever, summer of games, whatever it's called, is going on right now. I don't know. I can't remember what that Keeley's thing.
Summer of Too Hot for Good Pacing.
Yeah. I was not able to watch it, but I was watching our Discord watch it, and they seemed alternately amused by it and very bored.
I'm sure that is in no way some sort of weird Funhouse Mirror version of what was happening.
But the moment where they seemed most elated was the arrival of Nick Cage for reasons known only to God. No, actually, they're not, because Nick Cage is still massively in debt because he built the fucking pyramid. Like he's goddamn Ramses. So, MASB in the Discord on a call for questions related to this show asks, or MASB, who currently is going by the subtitle, A Horse is a Horse, asks, if you guys had carte blanche, what game or kind of game would you put Nick Cage in? And would he always play himself? Or is there a particular movie role of his that you would use? I would go for his character in The Rock or Con Air myself. Those are very different characters, to be clear.
Yeah, they are, because he's like he's the nerd, the scientist or whatever in The Rock, but then he's kind of, all-American military tough guy in Con Air.
And a narc who betrayed his fellow prisoners. But,
well,
that's fine.
Yeah, but, he shouldn't have been there in the first place, right? I forget the exact setup, but it's just, someone was being a prick in a bar, and then he's the one that ends up in prison, bless him.
And he ends up in a Supermax.
Yeah, that part of it seems, but, let's be fair, there's more than a few stretches of credulity in that film that go beyond that.
One thing to keep in mind is that Nick Cage does a lot of films in and around Las Vegas. Like a ton of them, including, I believe Con Air spends time in Vegas.
It's the end, yeah.
I think he's done like 7 or 8 Vegas movies at this point.
I know, it's funny that he won an Oscar for leaving Las Vegas when he so pointedly refused to.
Yeah, exactly. Which leads me to believe that he just lives in that area and wants to be able to just do movies whenever. So I picked a very early Vegas role for Mr. Cage. I picked his what's the name of that character? I had it a minute ago. H.I. McDonough from Raising Arizona, which is a movie about an ex-con, Cage, and his wife, Holly Hunter, who I can't remember if they can't have kids or just aren't.
It's been ages since I've seen it. It's an early Coen Brothers film.
Yeah.
I saw it a long time ago. I remember quite enjoying it, and that's about as far as it goes.
So a family I believe they were in the news because they had quintuplets, and they either can't have kids or don't want to go through the process or whatever. And they just decide, well, they've got 5, we'll just take one. And so basically the entire film is they steal a kid to just raise as their own. And it turns out that's actually kind of a bad plan, but also they are completely unprepared for having a child around them. And so they fall back onto their criminality to try to care for this. I mean, it's a comedy film about kidnapping. So there's a certain amount of Baby's Day Out going in here with Nick Cage. But I think that's the role I want. And in terms of what game I want Nick Cage represented in for that, I'm pretty sure it's Babysitting Mama. I'm pretty sure it's a remake of Babysitting Mama because Nick Cage routinely should have been told don't shake the baby in that film. Among other things like don't try to change a diaper while holding a gun. You know, lots of things that I think Babysitting Mama 2 with Nick Cage would be able to kind of give you a more nuanced perspective on the difficulty of rearing a very young child. And honestly, there was a period where we thought the last Mama game was actually mining crypto on your consoles. Like, that series has fallen far enough for Nick Cage to do it. He did that fucking vampire movie. There's no bottom. I could just imagine Nick Cage going, no, don't shake the baby at you. But then, every time you do it, he increasingly gets more and more amped up Nick Cage to the point where he's at the no, not the bees level screaming about shaking the baby.
Oh, not the bees.
You get the full gamut of here's the Nick Cage that doesn't care, and here's the Nick Cage that's acting way too hard.
Maybe you could even just use some of his existing lines for that, put the bunny back in the box. Just
exactly.
You don't even have to pay up for extra, dialogue recording.
And honestly, anything you don't have, just get AI to generate it at this point. Just cut it. Just cut him a check. Call it a day. Oh.
Now, I would have been somewhat tempted to say Wild at Heart, which is such a weird pairing in retrospect. Cage and David Lynch. It's hard to believe it actually happened.
Yeah, that feels like a movie that would never get out of production.
But it did happen. And I quite enjoyed it, but that part weirdly did kind of already get resurrected in non-video game, but equally CG dependent form in the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent movie.
Oh yes,
if you've seen that with Pedro Pascal and Cage, of course, it's essentially Cage played a version of himself, and he kind of has this kind of inner conflict with this previous version of himself, basically peak Nick Cage, right? It's when he was, on top of his game as a younger man, as a big film star. And for some reason they chose the David Lynch movie for that, not Face Off or Con Air, one of the crowd pleasing things he did, or indeed Leaving Las Vegas, which he won an Oscar for. It's no, the David Lynch movie. That was your peak movie star moment. In some ways I agree. In other ways I'm like, what? I don't get it.
I do appreciate that he actually goes by the Coppola name in there at one point in that movie.
Yeah, true.
Which honestly, he is not something he ever really acknowledges. Which I guess fits with the theme of that movie.
Yeah, but there's loads of obviously the whole thing with Pedro Pascal being a sort of Cage super fan, and he's got all this Cage memorabilia and all that. I mean, the face off guns. I mean, I do feel some sort of GoldenEye style shooter where you're using those the trademark John Woo double handgun, but very ostentatious versions of them. It feels like it should be in a video game of some description.
Has Nick Cage ever been in a Transformers movie?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't seen any of them in a long time.
It feels inevitable, right?
I can't say.
John Turturro's already done the Coen Brothers Transformers double, so I guess it's a pipeline.
It feels like Nick Cage should voice act a Transformer rather than be a human actor in it. I think that's really what we need.
Well, he was in Spider-Verse just as a voice, right? He was. So, yeah, I mean, why not?
I mean, he has done a lot of voice acting, like a lot of it. Usually in bad movies, which is a good. So, like Spider-Verse is a nice departure. Oh, I didn't think about Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider, yeah.
Ghost Rider's right there. He was in G-Forces. I think he was a fucking hamster. Guinea pigs or something. I don't know. That'd make more sense with G-Forces than being hamsters. God.
I really am having a hard time with this question because I think that I would put basically, like I mentioned, adaptation just last week. I think I would have Nicolas Cage's adaptation character. So he's playing Charlie Kaufman, trying to adapt. Like it's the story of Charlie Kaufman who agrees to adapt The Orchid Thief, a book about like a flower, can't do it. So the movie ended up being about his failure to adapt the book into a movie. And so this game would be maybe Nicolas Cage playing, I don't know, Shigeru Miyamoto, just like sweating, like just being, like feeling like a hack, feeling like he's just, an imposter, basically. Maybe he would give himself a twin in this game, a successful twin who makes actual successful games. I have no idea. That's the thing. Like I can't just make like a game deconstruction, like that movie. All
right, let me sell you on one, Guillaume.
Okay.
As opposed to being Nick Cage from one of his movies, or just Nick Cage being his weird self. Mm-hmm. What if we take Nick Cage's character from a lot of his movies and not extract them all separately as separate characters? So you could have Renfield, which looks fucking miserable. Looks fucking terrible.
So that's him as Dracula, right?
It's him as Dracula, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could take his character from The Croods, where he plays one of the cavemen cartoon characters. You could take him from any one of his quote serious roles. You could take him from
Zendali.
Yeah, you could take him from fucking Kick-Ass. You could take him from that movie where Season of the Witch. Yeah, that's a bad one. I don't think I
even got through all of that.
It's really bad. You could take his National Treasure character. You could take his Wicker Man character. You could take Ghost Rider. You could take Lords of War. You could take...
that was all right. Lord of War was all right, I think.
Yeah, it was. You could take his face-off role. You could take both of his face-off roles.
That's true. He essentially plays two parts. Yeah.
Multifaceted.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
You could take his Wild at Heart role and Time to Kill, all of these things, Raising Arizona. And so you take all of them and you put them in one place and have them interact. Guillaume, you know what series this is, right?
I'm sorry, I've
it sounds
lost
more
you.
like bloody B and John Malkovich, where Malkovich goes in his own head and everybody's Malkovich.
Well, so I'm thinking this is, you just put them all in one place and they all interact. I'm thinking Tomodachi Life.
Oh. I see. It could have also been Pikmin or...
It could have been. But see, I like the idea of you just walk into, you watch the big apartment building that they all live in.
They're
and
all
you
just different versions of Cage,
Yeah.
Across the Cage-verse.
Yeah, they're all worshipping a virtual boy for some reason.
Exactly. So that reason is he has to pay off his fucking Ramses style too.
But for me, you haven't mentioned the one that you're thinking Wild at Heart. I feel like is kind of off the table. An early Cage role that for me is like the beginning of the Gonzo Cage thing is Vampire's Kiss. If you've not seen this,
that's there too.
It's kind of it's almost like proto-American Psycho. I think it came out before the novel came out, but he's just this sort of New York yuppie kind of, stereotype of the late 80s, early 90s that for some reason is having some sort of like breakdown, basically, and he thinks he's turning into a vampire, and I mean, the premise, especially for that time, was kind of a little bit out there, but then where Cage takes it is just, it's full. Like, he doesn't hold back. He just goes for it big time, and it's deranged. And how you turn that exactly into a video game is pretty unclear. Probably as some sort of like psychological horror thing, it's, that if for some reason, you want to see Cage going all out before, like, we were all in on the joke of that, like, that's a pretty good example.
I mean, we could also have Captain Corelli's Mandolin, where he's playing an Italian officer who is seducing a Greek woman who's already married during the Italian occupation of Greece, while her husband's out fighting the war. Isn't Christian Bale in that movie?
I've never seen it.
Christian Bale's his enemy.
He would have been young back then because it was probably around the time of American Psycho, right? Like, he would have been in his 20s or something.
Like, those two being in a movie together sounds toxic for everyone involved. Also, I think you could do this Tomodachi life premise with Christian Bale characters.
They're all so intense. That's the problem.
Maybe this is like the
I'm
Pokemon
just imagining the Tomodachi life voice doing a protracted sort of treatise on Genesis records now.
So, you know what? What if this is the red and blue thing? So, Tomodachi Cage and Tomodachi Bale. But if you get both versions, they can interact with each other. So I think now we're on to the money making scheme. And if you're playing on the 6DS or the GameTube or whatever we're gonna call this thing, you can watch many characters at the same time, like it's a security film. I think we're on to something. I think we're gonna save the GameTube.
I'd rather just look at Nicolas Cage from every possible angle.
But you could do that too. You've got options.
Yeah, well, Guillaume's sort of living space is much like the architect from the end of the second Matrix film, where it's just a wall of screens of Keanu's face, but with Nick Cage, of course.
They're all telling me, "Fuck you, fuck
yes,
you."
One of them's flipping me off.
No, what if they're all doing it to each other though? And you get to see like see a POV of every single one of them.
Yeah, that is really like straight out of Face Off, isn't it? Yeah, because obviously it's meant to be Travolta under the face going "fuck you, fuck you." Yeah.
Oh, we could do this with Travolta too. To be honest. What if this is just a series? What if there's a lot of them, and the more of them you literally buy them moving the apartments next to each other? You just have a whole block of overactors playing stupid characters interacting with each other. I think we've put The Sims out of business. Fuck The Sims. I've gotten ready-made Nick Cage screaming at John Travolta's characters from Battlefield Earth.
Oh God, yeah. I mean.
I think we did it. I think we saved the GameTube. I think Nintendo, we just saved your future console. You just need to get that Nick Cage money. He's available.
He's very available, isn't he? It seems that way.
He's too available is the problem.
Yeah. And yeah, every now and again, I quite enjoyed that unbearable weight of massive talent, actually.
Sure.
He is capable of putting together a good role. The problem is he's available for any role, and will do them. And that's a problem. There are actors who can take bad movies, and they give you a performance where they know they're in a bad movie, and in a way that makes it better. But Nick Cage just seems to give you Nick Cage regardless of what he's in.
Tells it. That's how they refer to it in the industry, because obviously they're all big up on Kuto.
I didn't realize he had that kind of reach, but good for Kuto. There's a professionalism to that, and I don't want that. I want movies when the actor knows they're in something that's a bit shit, and they're constantly looking at the camera going, "Yeah, I know. And you in the audience are like, haha, I see it, buddy. This movie sucks, doesn't it?
By the way, to explain, like, if we have any listener who wasn't around for the original Kutar is Kutar,
yes,
we need to explain this. So Kutar is Kutar.
Yeah, I mean, you just explained it.
Yeah. So that's all you need to know.
Yeah,
I forget the exact phrase. It was like Kutar is Kutar regardless of blank, wasn't it? Like,
right. I believe it was if he's happy or sad.
Yeah, so it's just that, but with Cage and like regardless of whatever the role is, whatever the type of film is, it's him.
So the Kutar caught wind with us because of A, that description was completely mental. And B, it was one DS game in Japan, and for whatever reason, they decided to split it into 7 DSiWare games in the West, but gave them all the exact same description except for the name of the game, and the description was basically that. Kutar is Kutar. Basically, is he a cat? Is he a dog? Kutar is Kutar. But
also, his shtick was that he always has the same expression.
Oh, yeah.
So I found a tiny cartridge post here. So what is Kutar and why is it in 10 3DS games today? Well, I have the answers to the first question, sort of. So the description the developers gave was Kutar is the character who has an incredible expressionless emotions that can't be distinguished by laughing or crying.
Nope.
Kutar is not a dog, cat, or bear. Kutar is always Kutar, no matter where he is going or doing. Though being so expressionless, when Kutar wants to laugh, cry, love, or be angry, all feelings are still very ordinary.
All right, well,
no matter
the
what happens.
parallels with Nick Cage only go so far. I get it, but you've made your point.
Anyway.
The other reason that caught our attention, though, was their decision to just split this game up into 10 parts. Seemed particularly... I mean, it's a minigame collection, so you think, okay, fine, whatever. Except they split the credits
the
off
end credits,
as its own
Kutar
product.
End credits, yeah, that was
So you can literally just buy the credits to the other games. So stupid. It was a highlight of the Nintendo DSiWare shop, to be honest. Not in a good way. So again, there's a Nick Cage parallel. He's often the highlight of a film he's in, but not necessarily in a positive way. All right, so we've saved the game tube, and possibly helped Nick Cage pay off his debts. I think we've had a successful email segment.
Yeah, we've paved the way for the Nintendo heptahedron, so good for us.
That's right. We're gonna add some more screens.
Then the inevitable remake of the movie Cube with but all the interiors is just that screen, a screen with a different angle of Nick Cage's face.
Oh, God. So, if you get to the heptahedron, though, you now have more polygons than were on the faces of the drivers in Excitebots. I'm just suggesting that perhaps that's the future is you can set up an idle mode.
There was a driver?
Yeah, there was Excite Truck.
Oh, right, I see what you mean, right, yeah.
Yeah, there was a little driver in there, and he only had basically five polygon face.
When would you really get the chance to even look at it? So I'm surprised they went that far.
It was pretty fun, though, to get a look at him and go, God, that looks fucking terrible. All right. Does anybody here have new business they want to do?
Well, I mean, with Zelda, it's done some more stuff, but I wouldn't say anything that's really kind of something to talk about. Probably reserved for kind of maybe the eventual spoiler cast, some of the extra stuff now. So you've just toyed around with Kirby's Tilt and Tumble a little bit, and that's about it.
I finished off all the shrines and literally all the quests except for the "Let me make you the weapon of my people" quest, where it's like, bring me 9 diamonds, and I'm like, fuck you, no. So yeah, that's it for Zelda. I mean, that's like I'm literally out of content, which is this weird like, I don't know what to do. So yeah, I also toyed around with Kirby Tilt and Tumble because I was like, okay, how is this going to work? So Kirby Tilt and Tumble came out on the Nintendo Switch Online service, which if you are not aware of that game, because that game's actually pretty old at this point.
It was not previously re-released, kind of naturally
for good reason.
Yeah.
This is a Game Boy Color game that had a motion sensor in the cartridge, and that was how you controlled Kirby. As the name would imply, you tilted your system, and Kirby would roll like he was on a table that was moving based on how you've tilted it. It had a fairly finite number of range of control, though, so it wasn't like, super fidelity. But it was a neat gimmick. I only ever played it a couple times. I didn't own it. Did any of y'all have it?
No, that's my first time, kind of go with it. But I do wonder, the viewing angle of like an actual Game Boy Color, or even like the first version of the GBA. How
was
well
really
did this work?
bad. I played it on a Game Boy Color, which did not have backlight, and it was really bad. It was really hard to see. There are videos floating around on YouTube of people playing it on GameCubes with the player attached to it, which is funny, but also probably the best way to have played that game back in the day, even though the cables would be coming out of it.
Well, maybe not. I mean, like, first of all, wasn't the cartridge upside down, so you had to hold the GameCube also upside down because of the way the Game Boy player was made.
You would have, yeah, but like. At that point, you're holding a GameCube to play the game. Like, upside down, fuck it, sure, why not?
But I gotta say, I tried playing Tilt and Tumble on the Switch with the controller the Pro controller.
Same.
It wasn't really doing it for me, and then I actually took the Switch from the stand and I played it on there, and it made a whole lot more sense. Like, it seemed to be... Yeah, it seemed to be more precise, like probably just because of the fact of like you're holding actually the screen horizontally. Like, it was easier to get feedback because you can literally see, am I tilted to one side or not?
Yeah. The game felt very thin from what I played. You can shake it to make him jump. You can collect things.
Which doesn't work that well.
Yeah, that's the weakest part. I cleared the first world, got into the second world, and once you get into the second world, there's a lot more of the edges you can roll off, and you just die instantly. Like, it's not like an old top-down Zelda or something where if you fell into a pit, you just like re-emerge. With some of your life taken away, like that, you're dead, and then you're gonna restart. But I mean, it seems like there's lots of opportunity to gain extra lives, and it's pretty generous with checkpoints and all that. But certainly, you kind of. It was quite a jump from the first world where there's not that much opportunity to die, whereas like the second world, all of a sudden it's like, because obviously, with a game like this, as you might imagine, momentum plays a pretty big role, and then the visible screen area is not that large around Kirby because it's GBC, it's low res, so there is certainly so far it's been a fair bit in the second world of like, I'm just getting rolling to the left, and there's a thing, there's a kind of edge, and I haven't been able to stop in time, and he's dead.
Right.
And it's got these scratchy like voice samples.
Oh, they're so bad! It's amazing.
Before we got to the GBA and Toad's script, just what I needed or whatever, like we had Kirby. I had no idea that the Kirby voice stuff went back that far. To be honest,
it's bad. But it's being rendered on speakers now that are so much higher fidelity than the Game Boy Color speakers that it's probably making it worse.
Yeah, well, it's not getting covered up so much in the general kind of fuzz of the noise coming out. Yeah,
holy shit.
But like I said, I can only guess in one sense that this is like way better than having it on an original Game Boy, or Game Boy Color, I should say, because just OLED Switch,
I can see it.
The viewing angle, the brightness, if while I'm holding it in my hands and tilting it, at least I could keep the screen is so much bigger as well if you have it with the setting that it's actually taking up the most of the screen that it can, which obviously leaves you with some very chunky pixels on a Game Boy Color game. But, in this case, it's probably for the best, just so you can see everything. But it seems to work relatively fine, like for most things, but that flip to jump thing is like the weakest part, I think, because it's more, like you said, I doubt the motion sensing in the original cartridge was that nuanced, but, that's one thing, but that flip thing is more like a gesture. You know what I mean?
Right.
That feels more like, shake your nunchuck to do something in a Wii game.
It is, but at the same time, like, it seems like it still takes into account your tilt when you're doing that jump, and
because it doesn't know you're going to flick it up yet. Like, it can't.
Right. So I've ended up just, like, sometimes the game requires you in that second world to jump onto some sort of cloud, and I can't aim for it, like I'm right under it. I do the motion. Whoops, no, I just flew across the screen, and it's not a good feeling. So I don't know. Like, maybe I just need to get good at shaking the Switch without actually tilting it in any way. But I kind of lost interest at that second world, to be honest.
Finding the right inclination, like with the, setting your kind of neutral point, because obviously the way it kind of captures it in the game is like, okay, well, the Game Boy Color should be like parallel to the ground, basically, when you've got,
right.
and you got to do it that way. But the thing is, like, that doesn't, I don't really think that needs to be the case so much with Switch, because, like I said again, like the viewing angle stuff and the brightness and all that, like, is different. So I've been trying to just find a neutral point that's sort of comfortable to hold, and then also, you can sort of do the kind of tilting motions you need to do and keep the screen nice and visible. So I'm sort of still trying to find, like, what's the proper sort of calibration I want to start with, like, because you just press select at any time to kind of recalibrate and to sort of recenter it, essentially. And so
origin.
I've been toying with that a little bit, and I don't know whether I'm quite, like, fully happy with, like, a standard yet, but generally, like, it seems to work okay. But yeah, the more that you kind of, like, now in the second one, where it's like getting a little bit more advanced, and like you've kind of more hazards and more like stuff that's based around doing the flick to jump thing. I do wonder if it's going to feel like it's precise enough to really keep those things, to have those things in play and keep them enjoyable. But how much of that is this adaptation of it, and how much of it was the way it was originally, I couldn't tell you, because I didn't play it back on original hardware.
I'm sure it was a bad idea back then too, to have that motion to jump. And the fact is that, like, there's also certain situations where you have to press A to jump, like jump off, like one of those clouds that I mentioned. So they knew, like, that they had access to buttons if they wanted. And in some situations, like, I keep doing the shake, and I'm like, oh wait, nope, here to get off this thing, I need to press the A button. So I feel like, basically, like, mistakes were made. And now we're stuck with them.
It was just kind of, I guess it was relatively sort of pioneering in a way. This is something they would kind of keep pursuing, and then you get to like WarioWare Twisted, which is really good using motion control. But obviously, it's just, that's the beauty of WarioWare. I mean, I'm sure like the sensor and stuff was probably better. It had that kind of rumble feedback in it with the clicking and stuff, like that kind of helped give you a feel for, like what you were doing, and give it a more sort of physical kind of feel. But the other thing is just WarioWare's so reduced form, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, it led something that is kind of this broad and like a little bit gimmicky. Like, it doesn't really feel like it's ever inadequate for anything you do in WarioWare, because you don't do anything that complicated, so it was the perfect marriage of, the kind of hardware gimmick with the nature of the game. Whereas, maybe something that obviously is not an ordinary Kirby game, but it's still trying to have some kind of, overlap in terms of, this kind of jumping and enemies and stuff. Obviously it's another game where Kirby's actually getting nerfed while, because he can't float with impunity, which is sort of one of his defining characteristics.
Or just walk. He can't come out of being a ball.
Yes, but this is something that's happened to him, quite a few times, like with Canvas Curse and its sequel for Wii U, and I guess like Dream Course, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, they should just make sure he's got like extra feet lying around.
But I mean, I'll probably try and get through some more of it, and I'm just glad that we've got to a point where this can be re-released for people to look at. It's a kind of suitable material for a subscription service where you can just kind of check out this. It has this weird time capsule property of being like an 8-bit feeling Kirby thing, because obviously a lot of stuff on a Game Boy Color did feel that way. But then with that little bit of like early, 21st century scratchy voice samples and all that, it's got this sort of peculiar intersection kind of time capsule property to it that I kind of like for something that, at this point, I was a bit of a latecomer to Kirby, but, I've played a lot of Kirby stuff there. There's not that many gaps in there, and then it's nice to be able to kind of close one of those gaps with this.
Yeah, it's a fine game to include in this service, even though it's obviously not ideal because it's probably not built to I doubt it's perfect. A perfect representation of what playing that on the original hardware was like, but at the same time, it's the kind of dumb thing that I wouldn't pay for. Like, if they're like, we've released it, you can buy it for $3, my answer would be to laugh and go, absolutely not. So this is pretty much the only way they were going to get me to play it. And now I've played it, and I know that I was right not to have bought it all those years ago. But it was fine. In the context of playing it just to see what that thing was like. And so that was pretty cool.
And then the other games, we had like the Harvest Moon and that kind of tower game that was not like released outside of Japan originally.
So I know there were 2 Game Boy games. One was the Kirby one. The other
Blaster Master, the Game Boy Color.
Master, the Game Boy Color Blaster
which
Master.
I've played a little bit on when it was on the 3DS eShop.
Yep.
And it's just more Blaster Master. It's basically almost identical to the NES game. I don't remember enjoying it more or less.
I think it has some differences, but not that many. And also, of course, as you'd expect, the loss of visible play area is significant.
Yeah.
But
you can check it out for free, I guess.
Yeah. And then you said the other two were on GBA, correct?
No. Well, GBA's expansion pack, so it's a separate thing. The others, you had the Super Nintendo Harvest Moon.
Oh, that's right.
Which I think Japan had already got a while ago. So, but this. And then there was also a game I think that Japan had maybe earlier, or maybe it was concurrent with this. But it was a game that originally, upon its release for Famicom, I think was not localized because it was a Tower of Babel reference or something. So I may have just completely nixed it, but I forget what they've dubbed it now. Something Tower. But it's a sort of mid-80s Famicom game, but so Kirby was definitely the thing I was most interested to check out. I might spend some time with that Blaster Master just again because I've played a lot of other Blaster Master stuff, and be kind of interested to see how it well or not it does function on Game Boy Color.
Yeah, but to me, the Kirby was obviously the one they were leading with on this one, and
yeah. I mean, like Harvest Moon, you might already have it if you've got a SNES Classic, the Mini. Anyway,
and to be honest, like the N64 version of this game will come out eventually if it hasn't already, and that's this game in 3D with some more stuff. So you could wait for that. And then there's a million other Harvest Moon games on Switch at this point, or as the series is now called,
Story of Seasons.
Story of Seasons. Yes, there is still the Harvest Moon name out there, but those are not these games. those are games being made by Natsume themselves, and they're usually not very good. So like there's no shortage of cute farm content where you find someone to settle down with on Switch. Turns out there's like 25 of those at this point, and another one's coming out in a few weeks. So Ever Something Valley or whatever. So like it just never ends. It never. Remember?
So, yeah, I didn't know if you were going to say like, oh, Rune Factory, is that early, or like I didn't know which farm game you were talking about.
Remember the direct where we were like, oh, it's the direct of farm games, and it was like 5 of them. Yeah, that still, like, although the subsequent directs haven't been that, it's still happening. The tide hasn't stopped. It's just they aren't being featured in that kind of singular way as they were that one time. So yeah, keep your there you can see the progenitor of the form, I guess. That's the utility here. All right, did anybody else have any other new business?
I guess I can say very quickly that I've got a visitor here. We ended up playing Space Invaders Gigamax SE4 SE. What's it called?
Yeah, it's a weird one,
anyway.
Isn't it?
I shouldn't have closed that window, but yeah, Gigamax. So that's part of the collections, Space Invaders collection that I bought a while ago that I talked about, that I said I have regrets, because who needs that much Space Invaders? But Gigamax was one of the highlights because it was a home version of an arcade game that seemed to have some success. But basically it's 4-player, simultaneous Space Invaders, and you're kind of competing and co-op, trying to take down a whole line. Like it's one of those ultra wide games where like you've got several TVs, I assume, just strung horizontally together, and so yeah, you take down like a whole lot of Space Invaders, and then you get another phase where you get larger versions of those Space Invaders, and at the end of every 3 stages you fight kind of the saucer, but like it's giant, it's like a boss, and it's like it basically, it's very familiar. Like if you've played Space Invaders Extreme, I'm all mixed up now.
Oh
in
yeah,
my Space Invaders.
There was on DS and PSP. Yeah. Extreme.
Yeah, but that's what Taito does now, right? Like they just make Space Invaders. They always go back to the same pixel graphics, and they just jazz them up, or they make them neon and flashy, or like dance or whatever. Like it's but it's always like that iconic look. But like they blow up the sprites, and now you're fighting a giant Space Invaders. And as far as arcade games go, Space Invaders arcade games go, like this is probably one of the better ones. It's good fun with 4 players. Currently, there's like a different thing that's in arcades, I suppose, where you can win tickets by like basically like it's I don't know what that one is called, but it's Space Invaders themed, but you have some sort of laser cannon that you're shooting the Space Invaders with. It's like infrared, or what do you call them? Light gun. Like basically it's a light gun game. Yeah. And it's not very good because it's basically impossible. I know it gave me a lot of tickets, so we purchased a lot of chocolate bars after we played it a few times, but like it was over very, very quickly. This one, it's also a quarter muncher, but because I'm playing it on a console, I'm playing it at home, I've got infinite credits, so you could theoretically get through the game. Probably not unscathed. Like you'd probably have carpal tunnel if you tried, with 2 or 3 other players to get through Gigamax. But it is fun. So I can't highly recommend it. Like I think like if you have one Space Invaders game that you want to play, I would go with Extreme. I haven't played the version that's on Switch, but I can almost definitely guarantee that like that's the best experience that you can get on the Switch right now. in terms of Space Invaders. So go with that. But if you're curious about Gigamax, it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the few that I would be interested in that collection.
Yeah.
Which is why it's in a collection and not available on its own, because they can charge me more for that than they can for the one game.
Yeah, but I think it's one of the games that's in the kind of the mini collection. That's just 3 games. Where you're missing the original, but
this is sort of like a pretty consistent feature of somebody that, because wasn't there a similar analogous situation with the Wonder Boy collection? Where it was like, okay, well, there's a version where it's kind of stripped down to like the 4 games or whatever, and then there's the version that much more comprehensive, like, with like the different ports and as we know, like the various like names and the sort of labyrinth sort of identities and stuff. But I feel like it's one publisher, that does not only handles Taito stuff, or I think there's other Taito sort of examples, but it's kind of, this is their model, right? Is like you have like a sort of 2 versions of a collection, but in no case is it just buy the game you may actually want if you only want just one.
Right. But again, I said it back then, I'll say it again, you don't need 12 versions of Space Invaders. You can absolutely get by with a smaller collection. Save yourself a few bucks. And I think that other smaller collection also has Gigamax. Right. And that's probably all you want. So...
Yeah, did Taito just do a new Puzzle Bobble or something? Everybubble?
Yeah, they did.
Okay, well, I guess I can talk about that too. I played the demo a little bit, but the demo was multiplayer only. It was only for a few days. Basically, they put it up on like the 26th of May, I think, and then they were like, yeah, and you've got until the 30th to play it. So I played it for a couple of nights, and sometimes I got my ass wiped, and sometimes I didn't. Wait, what's the expression? Anyway, like I whooped. Yes. Not wiped. But so sometimes I got my ass kicked, and other times
it's a little too personal to me, honestly.
Yeah. Sometimes I won a few games, but it seemed like it. I had, I guess, for every time I play Puzzle Bobble or Everybubble or whatever it's called, Bust a Groove, it was once called also in some places. I keep forgetting when I started, like, oh yeah, like I need to be quick. That's one of the things, like this game, like, oh, it looks like it's kind of relaxing. Maybe like it's very colorful. You just have to match the colors. How nice. But then like, very quickly, like if you can't just keep shooting those bubbles, keep destroying those bubbles, you lose very, very quickly. And it's even more true when you're playing against someone who knows what they're doing, who are sending you garbage bubbles on your screen. So sometimes I would die very, very quickly online. Thankfully, the full game is not just playing online, so I'm kind of interested. I think there are some co-op modes, so I could possibly see myself playing that with Karen. But maybe not for, I think it's like $40 or $50 Canadian. That's probably too much for me for this type of game right now. So I'm waiting for a sale.
That seems like a lot of money.
Yeah, but it was very colorful. It was very like, you can customize your little bub or bub, by giving it a, like your little dragon guy, by giving it like, I don't know, like a clown hair or something like that. And then, you fight online. There was a mode that I could not try, which I think is Space Invaders themed. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's about. But I think it's basically the same idea. Like you can be 4 players and you shoot bubbles up the screen, but the bubbles are Space Invaders.
Sure, why not?
It looks
I caught a glimpse of this, but not enough to know exactly what's going on.
Taito has a fixed number of things available for them to include, so they just mashed them all and called it a day.
Right. From the review on NWR, I think it was Jordan Rudek who reviewed it. He said that the Space Invaders mode, even though it is appealing, does not have kind of the leaderboards or the options that the other modes do. Like it's very much kind of a mini game that's its own thing, and that you can't do much with. You know, like you're not going to be going back to it again and again because it doesn't really track your progress or whatever. So that's a little bit unfortunate.
That seems like a pretty huge oversight, to be honest.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, well. All right. Well, if we don't have any other new business, I think that might do it for us this week. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, Greg, what music are we going to end the show with?
Well, I was going to discuss this in the intermission.
Oh,
that hasn't happened. But I found a sort of a version of that Colgera battle theme that sort of identifies itself as the third phase. That I think it features some of what we wanted in there, but I don't know whether it's necessarily everything. So I was going to ask you if you wanted to listen to it and
sure,
and kind of
drop a link in. I'll take a listen.
Let me pull it up here.
The thing about the Colgera theme, I guess we can include this part as part of the conversation around it, is that it does a nice job narratively building. Now, my second time against him, when I just literally crashed through him like Batman through glass roof windows, I basically heard every phase of the song for about 5 seconds. But the first one is relatively staid. It's got lots of the flutes that we associate with the Ruto. The second version it's got more energy on it. That's after you've wounded him and he's mad. Then there's a version they've like pitch shifted it so it sounds more evil. This is when he goes into hyper mode. And then there's the version where we start getting the callbacks to some other stuff. And I presume that's probably included in this one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the idea. It seems like there's a lot of music, considering it doesn't necessarily have to last that long.
No, I ran that fight the other day in less than 3 minutes, just for funsies. And it's like, it is a fun fight, but if you don't know what you're doing, and I certainly didn't the first time I fought him, it could take some time because he's got very limited amounts of vulnerability, whereas most of the other enemies have bigger vulnerability windows. Although the water temple dungeon, I actually found the boss to be take longer to fight.
No, it's a bit more sort of, that kind of window can be where you can actually make progress can close on you a bit more easily in that case.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've emailed it because
okay.
That was just easier to paste to on this bloody tablet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Give me 1 second and pull it up. Let's see. This is phase 3.
I didn't want it to be ridiculous. I was trying to find something that wasn't like crazy long, but and that had sort of some sort of cross section of what we wanted from it. But like I said, within a reasonable length of time, and this is the best I've found so far.
Yeah. So this is a good one. So this phase 3, whatever this phase of the song is
I don't know how official any of these sort of designations are.
Because there's a weird narrative arc to the song. So there's the opening where it's basically the song is not that dramatic. They're squaring off, essentially. Then there's the you've wounded Colgera, and so the music picks up tempo. Then there's he goes into his second phase of attacks. And he changes up his attack pattern. That one has this more sinister run to it. And then there's, after you started hurting him there, it flips over into this more triumphantalist version, which is the version we've got here, where we hear Well, we get Dragon Roost Island.
Yes, which obviously they've taken as the kind of the Rito motif, naturally enough, because obviously the first time we ever saw the Rito was, in Wind Waker. That's where they lived, was Dragon Roost Island. So they kind of adapted it for, Rito Village in Breath of the Wild. And then you kind of had a different version of that for the Snowbound Rito Village in this game. Yep. And then, now you kind of work it into this boss fight because it's, it's that kind of quest line, all that. And it's, I've always really liked that theme in general. Back when he was in Wind Waker, we used the, that big band performance of it, as closing music before, which was a really great version. But obviously here you're kind of, taking it in a bit of a different direction in a boss fight sort of thing.
But it's very just Lord of the Rings music meets Ruto Village stuff.
It's just one of these things where when you kind of, especially for me, because I wouldn't always having the sound on that much or, playing in portable, but, kind of, okay, it's a boss fight. Let's hear the music a bit while I fight this thing. And then, that motif just kind of rises out of it. It just it makes more of an impact because it obviously, but there's always something about hearing something when it's in that kind of different form that kind of I don't know. It's something I really enjoy.
It's delivered vocally too.
They get the choir involved. That's right.
Up until that point, the song's largely been pan flute, percussion, and strings. There was a brief, I think I caught a brief amount of accordion in there, which would make sense because that was Rivali's key instrument in Breath of the Wild. Every other Rito,
Cass, right? The girl.
Cass played one, but Rivali's theme had accordion in it.
But I was going to ask, have you seen Cass in this? Because I haven't.
Cass is not in this game.
What's up with that?
He's what the fuck is Cass? He's not a Rito.
Yeah, I don't know what he is, but I was expecting to see him somewhere.
And his replacement in this game, the Newsbird, is also not one of them.
It's true.
He's his own thing. He fills the same role as Cass ultimately. Like Cass is sitting on except unlike Cass, he's not sitting on knowledge. He's just not going to give you. Cass was sitting on stuff. He gives you everything he has. He's wrong, but he does give it to you.
Yes.
But this song, there's a brief introduction of accordion to give you the Rivali stuff. What's interesting is the theme that's playing at the start of the song isn't, I believe it's new, but it definitely feels like something I've heard before, and I can't place it, but very much Zelda-y. Like, it's riffing on something, and I just have no idea what that thing is.
No, so it seems like there's a lot of elements to the full kind of boss, everything they composed for this boss encounter, and I'd be interested to hear on an official soundtrack release how they kind of handle the transitions and, sort of trying to stitch all that together into one track. Like, I didn't replay Breath of the Wild, as we kind of mentioned before, playing this game, but quite a few months ago. But still, it was in the run-up, obviously, to Tears of the Kingdom. I did get the soundtrack for Breath of the Wild, the CD set. Not the really fancy one that's really expensive, but it was a reasonable price, for what it is. It's quite a lot of music. And that was one of the most interesting things about that, was seeing how they took these songs that had the dynamic elements that they're so fond of and the different instrumentations and how they kind of weaved them together into, one track on that album release. And I think, there'll be a similar sort of process, no doubt, with the Tears of the Kingdom one when that eventually happens. But you got the one of the sort, I think maybe all the bosses have this, those sort of weird, like, backwards vocal elements, the
Zonai voices.
Yeah, the Zonai kind of motif, if you like, rather not so much a specific melody, but that specific kind of sound of the whole, the Ouroboros symbol and all that, it's very upfront.
There's a similar thing we talked about in all of the fights against the consoles in Xenoblade 3, where it's like there's, regardless of what the song is, there's that little theme that lays under it. All right. Well, this is, like I said, this is only one part of what is kind of an over-the-top amount of music for this particular boss. So, enjoy this segment, and at some point, maybe we'll use some other parts from it, because the whole thing is great, but it's a huge standout from this game. But on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.